Hello and welcome to the PMP Exam Application and Tips Bootcamp. It's great to have you with me today. Welcome. And I know some of you are participants in our PMP Exam Prep Bootcamp. So this is a bonus session for anybody who is either taking a bootcamp right now for PMP Exam Prep or possibly interested in learning more about this PMP exam and some tips for being successful on exam day. So welcome. It is great to have you with me. Just a little note in the chat. One thing about the chat is that it defaults to all panelists. And today I am your only panelist. So in order to keep our chat very engaging and have everybody participating, if you could set your chat default to all panelists and attendees, and then let us know where you're joining from and maybe what time of day it is for you. Love to see where our audience is joining from. And I know a few of you chatted and greetings in the beginning. So I see San Diego, Germany. I see India, North Carolina, Jamaica. Oh, it's going so quickly. I can't keep up. This is really neat. We definitely have a global audience with us today. And if you would like to, you can get a transcript from this chat. So we are recording both the audio, video, and also the chat. If the chat is distracting to you, because on a mobile device, sometimes it can pop up and take over your screen. If that's happening, you can mute the chat and you can just catch up with it later and watch it on separately. So it's completely up to you how you want to utilize the chat, either live with us today or watching it or looking at the transcript later. And so, yes, please keep chatting. This is great. So the recorded session, there are two places that you'll find this recording. It will be available in about 24 to 48 hours after our class today. And it will be either located or both. It'll be located in this SharePoint folder, which is also the SharePoint folder where we keep a lot of our PMP exam prep information. So from our regular boot camp, you'll find slide decks and all of that content in that folder as well. The other place you can find it is in Percipio. If you are in the Percipio learning platform, then you'll find it in the resources tab. So, and the replay will be in Percipio as well. So wherever you join today, the replay will be there where the live link was for today. All right. I see someone in the chat with a test scheduled for tomorrow. Good for you. That's wonderful. Hopefully, you're going to learn some things today that are helpful, that will really make exam day a pleasant experience for you. So, we are going to jump right in. If you want to follow along with these slides, you can by just downloading them or printing them from the link I chatted a moment ago. I'll chat it again, and you can find the slide deck there. And what we're going to do in today's session, because we're really handling two things at once, this boot camp is designed for two purposes. One is to help those of you who have not completed your exam application yet. Some of you haven't, and you're in the right place if you need a little bit of help on the application portion. And then for those of you who have already applied and been accepted, you're going to see that there is useful information about exam day and all of the new exam content, what's being tested, how is it being tested, what about the experience of the online proctoring for those of you who may not be going to an exam center, but taking the exam from home. So we have all of those tips to share with you today. First thing we're going to start with is just simply the requirements, the eligibility requirements for this exam. Now, one thing I want to clarify is when we look at the education, such as a 4-year degree or, say, an associate's degree, in both cases, the global equivalent is fine. I think I saw someone chat from London earlier. I know that in some countries, your degree might be a 3-year degree, and it's considered the global equivalent of, say, a bachelor's degree. So that will be fine. And so these are the requirements: the 4-year degree, 36 months leading projects, 35 hours of project management education, which you can get from our boot camp. So we do have that PMP exam prep boot camp. And if you don't have the bachelor's, that's all right. You can still qualify with just offsetting with more experience leading projects, and that will be all of the information that you need for your application. So those are the eligibility requirements. If you want more information, you can go to pmi.org. Great question. What does it mean to lead a project? So, you do not have to have the title project manager. A lot of times we see that candidates will say, I don't know if I'm really eligible to take this exam because I don't have a title of project manager. But that's okay if you don't. If you don't have that title, but you've led projects, I'll give you some examples of project managers who have sat and achieved their PMP certification. I worked with a high school math teacher who spent time updating curriculum for a semester. And what they did is completely uh, redid all of the curriculum. They had stakeholders, which of course would be the students and other math colleagues who might share those same students in the grades leading to her class and then after her class. So there was a lot of coordination with others. Um, there were risks because if for whatever reason the curriculum wasn't compliant with the curriculum requirements for the state that she was in, that could have been a problem. Quality, so that counted. And this math teacher who did not have the title of project manager was perfectly qualified. I've also worked with an executive chef who became a PMP. And if you think about being an executive chef and how completely overhauling your menu and or your processes could be considered a project. And so that would be an example as well of leading a project. Also, some of you may belong to very large corporations where you don't get the title project manager, but your work was instrumental in the success of the project. And in that case, you very well could qualify for leading projects. I'm seeing in the chat some of you are having difficulty with the SharePoint access. If your employer is blocking that link, you may have to use a personal account in order to access it. That can happen sometimes with firewalls. So if you're having difficulty accessing it, it is a public link. No password is required, but you might just need to do that from a personal computer. So these are the PMP eligibility requirements. And we are absolutely going to get to some of these questions I'm seeing in the chat, like what if I take the exam from home and that kind of thing. Yes, the SharePoint will be available. It won't expire. That link doesn't expire. So here are the steps. If you haven't gone through this yet, you're going to want to set up an account with PMI.org. There's no charge to do this. This is just creating a PMI account that tells PMI who you are, that you are that you're interested in learning more about project management. And just another thing, I'm going to chat this in. I know this is frustrating for anybody who might be having technical difficulties. Um, the audio issues could be due to your internet speed. We're aware that if you don't have a strong internet connection, that the audio can be the first thing to go. So I just wanted to chat that in. All right, if I see a question in the chat and I know I'm going to cover it later in the session, I may not respond to it now. And so the exam experience is going to be after we talk about this first part, establishing an account with PMI. There's no charge to do that. You're basically just telling PMI who you are, first name, last name, email address, a little bit about your industry and what kind of projects you work on, because they like to collect that data. It helps them to understand the audience. Then you select from the menu certifications. I think my little circle might be offset a bit. It should be over here. Certifications. So you'll select that from the drop-down menu, and then you'll choose to apply for your PMP. Apply now. And it is a good idea to go ahead and start your application. You have 90 days to finish the application, but definitely start it if you're starting an exam prep class. That'll be very helpful to have them going at the same time. So apply now for your PMP. The application begins with your academic education. So with academic education, what we're talking about is college, university, it could be a high school diploma, the formal education from an institution of higher learning. So this is not the education you get from Skillsoft. This is the academic part. We'll get to the other part, the Skillsoft bootcamp, in a moment. So here, when you enter your education, it'll indicate what qualifies. So it's intuitive. This application is online and it's able to figure out some information and determine what your eligibility is and if you've met it. So here we put in a bachelor's degree as an example. It knew based on what we selected that that was a secondary degree that was completed. And because of that, we're able to save the education and move on, move to the next step of the application. So as you can see, we get a green check mark. When we get a green check mark, then, and I'm going to chat in one more time that if you are having audio issues, it is an issue with internet speed. And it's pretty common. If your internet speed isn't fast enough, that can cause it. And you may have to watch on replay. Okay, so the secondary degree in this application has been met, and that means that the application will automatically close that part and it will lead us to the next part, which is the professional education. This professional education is from the boot camp. So this is going to be your Skillsoft boot camp, and this starts with 0 hours. So it will start to tally them as we enter them in. The nice thing about taking boot camp is that it counts for all of the hours you need. You just find them all in one place and it satisfies the professional education requirement. So if you enter that you took the PMP exam prep course from Skillsoft, the 35 hours are there, save the education, and there you go. You get that check mark and you can keep moving through the application. So now we're going to continue to work experience. The work experience portion of the application is the most complex. And the reason I'm saying that is that it's not just fill in the blank. These are your words. You're going to be describing your experience. And this is the area that can cause most of the issues for applicants. So I want to go through this very carefully with you. Even if you've already started your application, it's worth it to go back and just check on this part. So it's going to start tallying for us the number of months that we put into project management. You cannot overlap projects to where it would be more than the equivalent of a full-time job. So I wouldn't be able to say, oh, in 12 months, I achieved 36 months worth of project experience because I had two jobs. They don't like that very much. So each of your projects has to have a unique title. What organization did you perform that project for? And then the job title itself, which, remember, it doesn't have to be project manager. That's okay. And then your dates. I'm going to pull a question right now from the chat. If you have more than 35 hours of professional education, the system will turn off. It'll kind of gray out as soon as you meet the requirement. It won't let you keep adding and adding. So once the requirement is met, it just gives you the check mark and you keep going. If you completed your education prior to this year, it is still valid. You can still put your professional education from 2019. That would be fine. Here's the thing. It will qualify you to sit for the exam, but it won't qualify you, or it won't prepare you for exam success, because taking an exam prep class that long ago would be on the wrong content. This exam changed significantly in January of 2021. And because of that, we just really want to welcome you to attend a boot camp from this year. That's going to be ideal for you, and to take an exam prep based on the new exam content. And let's see. So there is no expiration for professional education. That will not expire. And this, oh, I hope you attend our next boot camp. So I'll get into that in a little bit when the next boot camp begins. And by the way, we have another session queued up for June. I'll give you the dates, but it is information about the boot camp itself, a little bit different than what we're doing today. So if you're thinking about attending the boot camp, I would invite you to go to that session as well. So project management experience goes in, and when we put, great, about the work experience. Yes, so what do we do here? I'm going to talk through all of this, and then if you still have questions, definitely chat them in. So a few things. Start with the most recent work experience first. Work your way backward in time. And the reason is that if you're audited, PMI is going to be asking you to find somebody who can validate that you did this work. And it's going to be a lot harder if the work is older, or you don't work for that company anymore, or your manager doesn't work for the company anymore. So work your way backward with the most recent experience on top. And then what you're going to do is enter that experience. It will tally your experience. So enter it one project at a time. Now, I have had this question come up before. What if I do a lot of projects at once? So there's one exception to being able to bundle your projects, and that is if all of your projects are under a program or some kind of related situation. And I'll explain one that will help. I hope it'll help. So I worked with a candidate whose job was to go in and assess damage after an event, like, say, a weather event like flooding or a fire or hail damage or anything like that. And their job would be to assess and estimate the work with the stakeholders, work with the subcontractors, so the vendors, perform the work and close it out. So definitely a project, but they were doing this like maybe a dozen of these at a time. So in that case, I would say it is okay to give it one title and to, in the description, explain that it's that kind of work and that you may have, say, 10 to 12 projects going simultaneously, but each project is unique in terms of its budget, its stakeholders, and things like that. And that would be an exception to being able to bundle projects. Okay, let's go to a little bit more about work experience here, because this is a lengthy part of the application. So they're going to want to know the approach you took. Don't worry too much about this if you don't know what Agile means yet, if you don't know what traditional projects mean. I'll give you a little bit of information, just enough that what you'll need for the application. In Agile projects, you might not always know the scope or what you're doing ahead of time. It might require you to work closely with stakeholders and figure things out as you go because you don't have a lot of information. So, with Agile, that means that you're working very closely and you're figuring it out as you go. With traditional project management, it's a little bit different because we know what we're creating all the way from the start. That would be like construction. We have plans, we know exactly what the structure should look like, and we're going to build exactly what we say we're going to build. So, great question in the chat. Does this count toward the 35 hours in education? It does not. Formal classroom education is about what you'll be tested on. This is a bonus session for anybody who's really interested in knowing, how do I apply and make sure it doesn't get audited or that it gets through? And on exam day, how can I be successful? So this is like a strategy session for that. And the recording is going and it will be available in about 24 to 48 hours from now. Do I mean to bundle these as one description or enter two projects that would overlap? We can't enter two projects that would overlap unless it was that situation that I explained a moment ago, where we actually had somebody whose projects were all going at the same time, and they might be handling 10 to 12 projects that are all very much alike, but because projects are all unique, each one has its own budget, its own scope, that kind of thing. So the project description, here is an example. And I want to explain the importance of this kind of description. So let's look at this. As a member of the PMO, which means the Project Management Office, I worked on the ABC project to modernize our system and processes. So that first sentence is just, what do you do? Not highly technical. What was the project? I guided portfolio and project activities and maintained project governance while working with key stakeholders and vendors. Now, let me ask you, if I take this description and I'm going to draw on this right now, let's just go right here from this sentence that starts with the letter I, with the word I. What industry could this be in? This is this is really important for the application. What industry could this be? Any industry. Right. So here is a pitfall that a lot of candidates get stuck in. You feel like, I need to prove to PMI that I know my job and it's highly technical. So I'm going to fill my project description with acronyms and industry kind of language. That is definitely going to flag an audit. And the reason is that PMI wants to know that you perform projects, and projects have a common language, which includes things like stakeholders and working through things like a kickoff meeting, or if you were managing your project knowledge or dealing with project risks. Those are things that everybody should be doing on a project. So that's the kind of thing that PMI is looking for. And then they want, what was your role? So I was a member of the PMO. That's one. They also want to know just an overview of what the project was. In this case, it was to modernize system and processes. A very project related description, so that vocabulary, and then closure. So, what was the outcome? And you know what? It's okay if you worked on a project and the project got canceled. It counts. it's a giant lesson learned, right? If you have a project and it got canceled, all the effort that you put into that counts. It's part of project management. You don't have to have seen a project through from beginning to end for it to count for your experience. So I wouldn't recommend copying and pasting the same text across all projects. And the reason is every project is unique. Every project has its own objectives and goals. Every project has unique stakeholders, probably its own budget and schedule, very different risks that could impact the project, and constraints. So if you did a project one year in the summertime and then another year in the wintertime, was weather a factor? What was different about this project than the other? So you want to be careful not to be overly generic, but you also don't want to be so specific that the person reading your application says, I don't even understand what I'm reading because it's full of, industry language and things that I don't understand. So, yes, we'll get into the PMP boot camp in a little bit and tell you all of the features, including a practice test. So here are some additional tips for your project management experience. Use the project management terminology that you've learned in class. So when you take our class, you're going to learn all sorts of terminology. Avoid jargon from your own industry. I know this sounds funny, but the experience of a rocket science or an educational administrator or an executive chef should look similar because you're explaining project management work. Don't try too hard to impress. If your project did have challenges, share those. Lessons learned, a canceled project, share that. That's experience too. You didn't do the work all by yourself, so remember to include your team and other stakeholders. Also, another pitfall, be careful not to explain day to day operations. Projects have to have a start and a finish, and they have to reach some kind of objective. So if it just sounds like, oh, I did the monthly reporting for this department, that will probably be rejected as just ongoing work. What made this project unique? So that's why you can't copy paste, because every project has some kind of special influences or risks that you faced. And then remember to include that outcome. Was it successful and what were the lessons learned? So this is all part of the project management experience. Okay, let's see an example here. So you were the program manager of an ongoing employee training program for 4 years. You performed lessons learned and improved and iterated every season or year. I'm so glad you brought that up. That is what I would do is enter each year as a separate project. I had the same thing. I was in a human resources department that handled an annual benefits open enrollment. And every single year, our benefits changed, or our employee population changed, or we had rate increases or things like that. And every single year, we also had new technology and things that were unique about that run of the open enrollment. So, yes, with your example, absolutely that's project work. Just make sure you count each one separately. Okay. Um, do training sessions that are in different countries count as different projects? Different sites, trainers, coordinators, shipping? Yes, every single training session, this boot camp that we're doing right now, it's a project. It may only be a very small project, but the stakeholders are unique. The schedule is unique. Everything about it and the resources we need are unique. So it you just want to make sure that you describe each one individually. Just be careful. If you bundle, then make sure you describe how the projects differ, that they differ in geography, they differ in budget, or however they're different. Um, let's see, you're managing training programs and not spending all of your time, only part of the time. Yeah, so you would just mention the start and end dates. I see what you mean because it's going to count that as months. Just be really honest with your start and stop dates, and the application is intuitive. And so it might not demand that you put in full-time hours for that project. And as soon as you hit the work experience requirement, you'll get that little check box, that check mark that you get on all of the other sections of the application. Now, PMI wants to know your address. So you're going to put that information in. And yeah, if you worked on classified projects and you can't include everything, just make sure that you indicate that they were classified. And so without noting the processes, just remember a moment ago, we saw that no matter what industry you're in, you can definitely say that you worked with key stakeholders to identify project requirements without giving out anything classified. So if it's classified, you could say so, but they're still going to expect you to at least put in basics of what kind of project management tasks you performed without ever having to reveal the nature of that work. Okay. If a project has multiple locations, then it's probably still most projects do have stakeholders that are located in different areas. So it would still be a project. It would be a project that had very unique environmental influences, because I bet you have to take into consideration constraints and resources in each of those areas and different stakeholders. So that would go into your description. So you're going to go ahead and indicate your address and put that in and save it. And then how do you want your name to appear on your certificate? So you'll put that here. This would be first name, last name on the certificate. That's exactly how your certificate will read. And then provide your email address to PMI and your phone number as well. Then this is where you indicate where you intend to take the exam. So this is, you might choose online and you might choose a specific location. I do not think this locks you in at all, because you don't actually get to choose your exam date until you complete the application. So then you'll register. But you can tell it says intend to take the exam. And then if you need any accommodations, so if there is any disability or medical thing where you have to maybe take medication or have water or stand while you're taking the exam, this is a good time to let PMI know this information. Okay. Then we're going to agree to the terms and conditions and indicate that all of the information given is accurate, and you submit your application. You can take the exam from home. This is a newer opportunity that came up in the last year or so, it's a nice thing, and it's been working really well. Okay. Um, if you have client account management maintenance contracts helping with issue resolutions, let me go back, um, to upgrade multiple clients at the same time, this is one where you might need to bundle all of that work and say you were handling multiple maintenance contracts that would have different start and stop times with different stakeholders and different budgets, but they all happened within this window. Then that is one of the unique situations where bundling them should be fine. Should you apply now, even if you'll only be ready to take the exam in 3 months? I would go ahead and maybe wait a little bit, because once PMI tells you that your application has been approved, at that point, you have 1 year window, and it might not make sense to start that time ticking yet until you're closer to taking the exam. Okay. All right. Yes, I will have more information about taking the exam from home. That's going to be coming up here shortly. So we're almost through the exam portion. Let me see how much more we have. Yeah, we only have we're switching gears right now, actually, and we're going to be talking about the exam experience from working from home, or I'm sorry, the exam experience taking the exam from home or from a site. So I noticed that several of you had asked questions about what about my work experience? What about this? Here, I would recommend that you go ahead and go to pmi.org or to the SharePoint folder that I shared with you and find the PMP handbook in there. That's going to be really helpful. That PMP handbook is going to tell you even more, deeper dive into what we just talked about. Okay. Yes, I think PMI and Pearson VUE, the testing center, were having some issues where the time zone would show up in a time zone that's different than yours. I would go ahead and contact Pearson VUE directly or PMI directly to just clarify your exam date with them. So, how often does the PMP exam change and why does it change? In 2019 was the last time that PMI conducted a role delineation study. That's where they go out to the field and they ask project managers in all different, globally, in all different industries, what do you do? What are the actual tasks that you perform on the job? And based on what they got back from that study, the job task analysis gives PMI insight to what PMPs or to what project managers are really doing on the job. And they figured, it would really make sense if we test to those skills. That would be appropriate. So every so often, based on this study, they will update the exam. And that's exactly what they did with this latest update in 2021. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't have the PMP handbook in there. I'll have to load it. I'll update it, and then you can also get it at no charge on pmi.org. The PMP handbook is available at pmi.org. My apologies, I'll have to update that handbook. What should be in there is this, the exam content outline. The exam content outline is the result of the role delineation study saying, all right, these are all the tasks that project managers are performing, and we're going to be testing you on those things. So the exam is based on these three domains: people, process, and the business environment. Great question. Will the exam be updated with the PMBOK 7th edition? I have an answer for you on that in a couple slides from now. The answer is no, and I'll explain why. So people, process, and business environment make up 180 questions, and the percentage is divided this way. So people is 42% of the exam, process 50%, business environment 8%. You get 230 minutes. And the thank you. The handbook is there. Good. All right, in the last file in the folder. Thank you for that confirmation, and I just chatted the link to the folder again. So you get 230 minutes to spend on this exam, and you get 2 10-minute breaks during the exam. So you have to kind of manage your time and the flow. I'll show you how you can manage your time and kind of keep an eye on the clock as you go. We'll have a slide for that. And the questions are divided in this way across the domains. If you take a PMP exam prep course with us, you'll have access to an exam simulator or a test prep that also includes these domains, and you can practice taking the test, or it's not the test, but you can practice with very relevant questions that are aligned to the question types you'll get on the exam. Do you really need all of this time? I've spoken with a lot of candidates who took the exam this year, and most of them said that they took right up to the last few minutes. And they were really glad that they practiced their time management because it took them a good bit of time. I did talk to one candidate who said they finished early, but for most people, you'll use all the time available. And we'll go through the flow in just a bit. So as PMI has organized this information for us, they've separated these domains. And let's just take a glance at one of the domains. We'll take process as the example. So a high level knowledge area is a domain, and process is the domain we'll choose here. Now, every domain has a bunch of tasks, and tasks are underlying responsibilities that PMPs or project managers say they do on the job. And one of these tasks could be something like assess and manage risks. That could be a task. Then, if you kind of dial down even further, there are examples of the work that's associated with the task. So, determine risk management options would be an enabler. It enables you to complete the task of assessing and managing risk. All of this is in the exam content outline. If you take a look at this, you'll find every single one of the domains, the enablers, and the tasks. They will all, or domains, tasks, and enablers, they'll all be in there and you'll see them. Okay. So lots of questions. I'm going to stick to the ones that are relevant to what we're showing on the slide in the moment. And then as we get through, I think you're going to see that a lot of your questions will be answered. And then any of them that aren't answered, of course, we'll get to. So this is an example of a page from the PMP exam content outline that shows you a domain, people, many of the tasks that roll up to that domain, and then the enablers are right here. I like to use this as a checklist to say, these are the things I feel really strong. I can be tested on these and I'm ready today. These are some of the areas where I might need to work and get a little bit better. Treat this like the syllabus for the exam, and you'll be in great shape if you do that. So there was a question about the PMBOK guide. The PMBOK is known as the Project Management Body of Knowledge. That's what PMBOK stands for. I've actually reviewed the last few editions of the PMBOK guide, and so, as a community of project managers, you can do that too. You can review upcoming PMBOK guides and see what's coming. So, I've reviewed the PMBOK 7th edition and the standard for project management. And what I can tell you is this is always true, PMP exam updates are not tied to PMBOK updates. That might seem weird, but the PMBOK guide is just one of many references for the exam. It is not a test prep tool. When this PMBOK guide 7th edition is released, which I think is going to be August, we're not going to see another exam change. We just saw an exam change, and that was in January of 2021. So the PMP exam updates are based on very important factors like the role delineation study, but the PMBOK updates are not one of them. So let's take a look at how PMBOK guide updates work with, there we go. Let me show you this. Here's a PMBOK update. Here's PMP exam update. So these kind of roll in a different order. So kind of look at the way they're not intersecting, except every so often you'll coincidentally see a PMBOK update and a PMP exam update kind of get close on the cycle. And that's when it can be really confusing because, like this year, 2021, we actually have these cycling in a way where they're close. So a lot of people are like, well, that means that the exam's got to update, right? No, these are on their own cycles, if they happen to go together in a calendar year, it's completely coincidental. It is not a cause and effect relationship. What updates the PMBOK is just that every 2 to 3 years we get an update of the PMBOK. What updates the PMP? The role delineation study. Two completely different drivers for each of these. Now, what about the PMBOK? Well, the PMBOK happens to be one of 10. Oh, I love that. It's like the Earth and the moon will never see the other side. That's funny. So there are 10 books that go into the reference list for the PMP. It's a good thing to work with an authorized training partner. That's what an ATP is. Skillsoft is an ATP, and anybody who teaches you in a PMP bootcamp with Skillsoft is an ATP badged instructor. So that means that we've taken all of this information and we've distilled it for you into just what you need to know. You don't need to know all of these books. That's more than 5,000 pages of reading. Even the PMBOK guide is not a study guide for the PMP. So, oh yeah, hey Craig, it's great to see you in the class. Yes, Craig took a picture of this and posted it on his LinkedIn account that shows the stack of books that are in this reference list, and it's really intimidating. It's a lot, and you don't need to read them all cover to cover at all. You're taking the Skillsoft course under the PMBOK guide. I would want to know which course you're taking. It should say this: in order for you to be in the right training, it should say PMP Exam Prep, and either something like 2021 aligned, that's good news. That tells you it's this exam. Or if you see the term ATP in the description, you know you're taking the right thing. If it just says PMBOK 6th edition, then I would encourage you to search for different content. Yep, 2021 update or 2021 aligned. Yeah, that is definitely the right content. So this reference list, you don't have to worry about reading all of that. We will help you out there. Question types for the exam. In the SharePoint folder, if you are able to access the slide deck for this, these links will work for you. So you can hover over and you can actually use that hyperlink to go see what the prototype questions are like. This is a link that works. So the types of questions: situational, almost 100% situational. And you have to make the right decision as a project manager or a leader of projects. There are 5 different question types. So we've got click on a chart or a hotspot, fill in the blank, drag and drop, multiple right answers, but most questions are the traditional one right answer kind of format. I'm going to see, I don't know if this hyperlink is going to work while I'm in this mode. Maybe what we can do is try, yeah, I don't think it's going to work while I'm in this mode. I'll have to pull it up a little bit later. Right, yeah, that didn't open. Okay, but we can come back and check out some of these links together, and I'm happy to share them with you. So it's a PDF. It should be in the folder for that I chatted. Question types and styles. Okay, so when we say click on a chart and there's a hot spot, it means identify, maybe it's a project management or a project life cycle, and it's showing the beginning to the end of the project, and it's asking you to select at what point in the project are we executing the project, or where is the planning, and then you would click on that part of the chart. Fill in the blank doesn't mean free form fill in the blank. It means that you'll choose the best word that would go in that blank. Drag and drop means putting things in order. Multiple right answers is tricky, but what I really appreciate about PMI is if there's more than one right answer, they will tell you pick two or pick three. So it's not a mystery how many of them are right, because that can be very challenging. Agile has made its way into the exam, and we'll talk about Agile here shortly. Is there partial credit? Great question. So let's say they ask you to pick two and you pick one correct one and one incorrect one. Is there partial credit? PMI is very mysterious about their scoring process, and they only indicate if you have achieved target or if you're above target, at target, but they don't tell us how they score. What we know for sure is that if you take our test prep in Percipio and you score 80% or better consistently on your full length practice exams, you're going to be ready for this exam. So you'll never know what you got right or wrong on the real exam, but in our practice or test prep, you'll have explanations for what you got right or wrong and the reason why. And it's really helpful for test prep. So now on the exam, starting in 2021, Agile was incorporated to make up half of the exam. Agile or hybrid, meaning a combination between Agile and traditional. And so questions could be, how do I transition from a predictive project to an Agile project? One thing that you'll learn in our boot camp is that Agile is all about having a mindset and values and principles that you're basing everything on. So welcoming change, delivering value early and often is in Agile. And so if your organization is shifting from predictive to Agile, one of the very first things you need to do is engage your stakeholders and team members in the process and make sure that everybody has readiness to transition to Agile and that they understand the fundamentals of Agile. So that would be a very first step. Predictive process groups. Let me relate to the Scrum. You know what? Let's go ahead and skip that one. That's not going to be helpful for this. Conflict management will, motivation issues, team development. Agile is all about the team, and Scrum is the agile approach that this exam takes. So you would learn all about Scrum, how to compare predictive versus agile project management. What is a minimum viable product? Don't worry, if you're looking at this slide right now and saying, I don't know any of those things, oh no, well, you're not supposed to yet if you haven't taken an exam prep. That's okay. And that's what we're here for. So we're happy to assist you, of course, and hope that you'll attend a boot camp. I'm going to go into the chat and I will be sharing with you how you get into the test prep and how you can register for a boot camp. So I'll be sharing that with you soon. Let's see, what else? The PMBOK 6th edition. So you've already completed coursework, and do you need to read the book? Yeah, I do. I in the PMBOK guide, I agree. If you read chapters 1 through 3, that gives you an idea of how a project flows. It gives you some idea about the team, but I would consider the PMBOK to be the equivalent of the traditional, or what we would call predictive version of project management. If I were to choose any book that you should read cover to cover from that list of 10 books, it would be the Agile Practice Guide. It isn't that much reading. If you take out the appendix, I think it's 100 pages. So that, yeah, that, thank you, Kim. The Agile Practice Guide is perfect. And that'll give you the agile approach. But no, I don't think it's worth it to read the PMBOK guide from cover to cover. I think it's worth reading the first 3 chapters and the vocabulary in the back. So the glossary. Absolutely. Great questions. Where can you download the guide from? If you're a member of PMI.org, you automatically get access to both the PMBOK guide and the Agile Practice Guide downloadable versions. We also, if you're a Percipio platform, if you use our learning platform called Percipio, then you may have a tab called the books tab, and we'll visit that. I'll show you where I'm talking about in Percipio, and we have pulled in some books from the reading list that you can look at as well. And if you like to have a hard copy of a book, and I understand if you do because you might like to put sticky notes in it or highlights, then you would probably be better off getting that from Amazon.com or a bookseller, and that will, even PMI hasn't really handled book sales lately. I think there's a third party that does that. Being being certified in something adjacent to this PMP, like I'm a certified Scrum Master, or I'm a certified product owner, or I'm Safe Agile certified, will that help? It certainly will help because you'll have a foundation to build on, but it wouldn't take the place of learning the PMI way of approaching your projects. So it's helpful, but it wouldn't serve as good exam prep by itself. So exam day, let's talk about this. The PMP Exam Experience. Pearson VUE is the testing center that handles all of the PMI exam proctoring. And they do that in person and they do that online. So you can log in early if you want to get an online proctored version. They have they had a little bit of a bottleneck in the beginning of this because exam centers were closed or had limited seating, so everybody was pushed to the online proctoring. Now we're seeing, just depending where you are globally, some testing centers may be opening back up with limited seating. Just be very aware that if you're going to go into a testing center, you may have to wear a mask for 4 hours, and not everybody's comfortable doing that. And so make sure you know what their protocol is and if you're comfortable with it. Now, if you're thinking you want to test from home, your internet speed is crucial. If your internet speed cannot maintain the test platform and you get kicked off, it could void your score. And so you want to make sure that you have a consistent internet speed and no issues with that. Pearson VUE actually has a link on their site where you can test your internet and your computer from home just to make sure that it's okay and that you meet the minimum requirements to take the exam from home. Okay. All right. So this is the PMP exam experience. You get 180 questions, 230 minutes to complete those questions. Now, they are broken up into 60 question blocks. If you once you complete a 60 question block, you can choose to either take your break or skip your break. No matter what you choose, you're going to enter into the next 60 question block, and this 60 question block is going to be locked. You cannot go back. Once you enter into a break, you cannot go backward. And so keep that in mind before you submit or decide to go to break. Make sure all 60 of those are complete. You're responsible for your own time management. And what that means is that PMI does not divide the 230 minutes into 3 parts. That's up to you to make sure that you're managing your time very well, giving yourself about a minute per question. And so that's key. Manage your time very carefully and score early wins. So if you're taking the first few questions and you're just thinking, oh, I don't know the answer to this one, or I'm really nervous and I don't feel like I'm in a groove yet, skip it. It's okay. You can go back to any unanswered questions and complete them before you submit that block of questions. So if you need to just skip until you can get an early win or two, meaning a question that you're confident about, then do that. It's okay. Um, in this class today, we are not going to have a break because we are not doing a full 3-hour boot camp. This is only scheduled to be about an hour and a half boot camp today. So where we would normally take a break in a full PMP boot camp, we won't need to do that today. We're only an hour and a half for this boot camp session if you were asking about a break for this class. So each block is submitted and then it closes down and you can't go back to those questions at all. But when the exam begins, PMI already knows which 200 or which 180 questions have been randomized for your exam. So it's not one of those types of exams where if you miss some, the exam gets easier, or if you get more right, the exam gets harder. It's not like that. Your questions are your questions, no matter how you're performing on them. There is no negative scoring. So that means answer every question. You don't lose points for getting a question wrong. You just don't get points if you don't get it right. So yes, some of you may have difficulty where you can't take it on a work laptop because Pearson VUE will load software onto your computer, and they're loading that software to make sure you're not running anything in the background of the exam. They want to know that you're working with a clean desktop or laptop without any attachments, without any other software running. You will need to show the proctor your clear desktop. No, usually, I mean, I I've heard differently. I've heard you can't even have water with you. Now, I've heard someone else say they were allowed to have water, but just be prepared for whatever the proctor tells you so that there aren't any surprises. You can't have your own calculator that's built into the software of the exam. So you can use the exam software for your calculator and also a whiteboard, which we'll talk about in a moment. Yeah, they'll block any background programs. And sometimes if it's a work computer, the work computer is not going to be okay with that. It will be a security problem where your work computer will probably block the Pearson VUE software. So yeah, no scratch paper. You'll use a whiteboard instead. So there is a practice whiteboard that they have on Pearson VUE's website on VUE. Practice with this whiteboard. You can be really confident about all of the curriculum for the exam, but then the whiteboard itself could throw you off because it defaults to a really large font. Yes, we have a link to the whiteboard in the last slide. It's there in the last slide of this deck. So you'll want to get used to how to navigate the whiteboard so it doesn't become a distraction or some kind of an impediment for you on exam day. Um, the 60, oh, let's see, right here, 180 questions, the 10-minute breaks are in addition to the 230 minutes. So they do not count in your 230 minutes. All right. Oh, yes, you can. Oops, sorry, I knew that was going to pop up today. Let me get that out of the way. I had snoozed it and it's waking up. Okay, let's get that out of there. Can you change to online proctoring? Those types of really specific needs, if you need to change your exam date, reschedule, change the location, those inquiries should go directly to Pearson VUE. They're going to handle that. You're you are correct. You cannot talk out loud. I know some of us read an exam question out loud to help with our comprehension, but you're not allowed to do that. Pearson VUE needs to know that you don't have, I guess, maybe like a little earpiece with somebody helping you, and so you can't read out loud, you can't cover your mouth. If they're very nice about it, but if you start to do something like this, they will just say, "Excuse me, you need to remove your hand." And if you float outside of the screen, they're going to just nicely alert you to that as well. So those are all things to think about. The other thing to think about is wait until the proctor tells you that your exam has officially ended, even when you see the congratulations screen. I've heard from two separate candidates that they saw the congratulations screen. They immediately picked up their phone to call a friend or significant other to say, "I passed." And the proctor said, "Whoa, no, you need to sit back down. We can void your score. You're not finished yet." And so it's important to realize the proctor is the one who tells you when the exam is finished. You can't have a pen and paper. That's what the whiteboard is for. So right here, the no pen or paper, it has to be a clear desktop. So that's key. Um, from my understanding, that's a great question. I don't know if they proctor several people at once or if it's more one-on-one with the at-home test. It's a very good question. Um, I don't know. I know that you don't see the proctor, but they see you. So um, yeah, the whiteboard is embedded in the software for the exam, and the calculator is as well. So you will have a calculator embedded in the software too. Strategy, read every question and think about that some of those questions will say, what is the best thing to do? Well, all four of the questions could or answers could be right, but they're asking you which one is the best. So read through all of the possible answers. It's about solving problems and making decisions. Follow your plan, but be ready to be agile, meaning that you might go into test day saying, "I know that I am going to be at question number 60 at this time on the clock." Well, if it doesn't happen, be ready to adapt, be ready to change your plan as you go. And so that way, nothing will throw you off and things are going to happen. I've also spoken with a candidate who said, "The proctor was late to my exam. I was there and the proctor was late, and I was really, it wasn't expected." That's okay. Things are going to happen. If that happens, just don't let it get in your head. Just keep moving forward. And PMI does not indicate what a qualifying score is. They're very secretive about that. You can go back and change answers prior to breaks. You definitely can. You can mark questions for review. You can skip questions. And then you just want to go back and make sure all 60 of them are complete before you choose to go to break, since you can't go back. So you'll need to decide, am I going to take this exam at a testing center or at home? Work out the time management, and using our test prep or the simulator is going to help you with time management. Develop a plan for the exam. So think about your flow through the questions. Think about things like, if I don't know the answer, how much time am I going to give myself before I decide to skip it and come back to it? Think about those types of scenarios, and it'll be really helpful. Okay, recommendations. Review the PMP exam content outline. Review the PMP Enhanced Student Kit. What does that mean? When you are taking a PMP exam prep class with Skillsoft, as an authorized training partner, that's what ATP stands for. As an authorized training partner, we get PMI content that is developed by PMI for this exam. So we know what we're teaching you is aligned to the exam. But some of those slides, sometimes they can they don't give you all of the information that we feel like you need to know to really understand a concept. So we've enhanced that slide deck by adding additional slides that are Skillsoft slides in some of the most testable areas. So when you take a boot camp with us, you'll get you'll really get uh, a, I think it's great curriculum. I think those students we've had who've passed and came back and said, it's because you really covered that curriculum and I understood the concept. So we know we're on the right track and aligned to this exam. I know that this says read the PMBOK 6th edition. Let me clarify chapters 1 through 3 and vocabulary. Those are the parts of the PMBOK guide. And then use the training mode or learn mode in our exam simulator or our test prep so that you understand if you missed something, why you missed it. A little bit more, let's see, in what orders do the questions that you skipped reappear? They actually have a screen that's a review screen. When you get to the end of a block of questions, you can review at any point in time. They'll show all the questions and it'll have any ones that you flagged, will say that you flagged them, flag for review, or you'll see unanswered or incomplete. So that'll be there too. No, you do not need to know the inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs from the PMBOK guide. That would mislead you to studying the wrong things for this exam. Okay, once you certify, you fall into a 3-year recertification. It's like a cycle, and every 3 years you need to earn 60 professional development units or PDUs for continuing education, and you report those directly to PMI to keep your certification active. You don't have to take this exam ever again once you pass, as long as you keep it active by completing your continuing education. Okay. If you finish one time block early, you can keep the time for the next block. Yes, that 230 minutes is for the whole exam. Good question about the student key. So if if you've already taken a boot camp before April, you probably do not need a student key. And some of you may be wondering, what is a student key? Authorized training partners, or ATPs, when we teach a boot camp, every student needs to have a unique student key or student kit. And the student kit is a $99 purchase that most of you your employer will purchase it, and they'll work directly with Skillsoft to do that. So if you have questions about that, that is really falling under the PMP ATP bootcamp, and we talk about it during the boot camp. So you'll know a little bit more about that. Yeah, okay, so just a little confirmation about that key. Okay. If you took a March, April 15-hour boot camp, do you need to do another one? You need to combine that 15-hour boot camp with the self-directed courses that you would have been instructed to take. And if you do that, you're fine. You don't have to necessarily take a brand new boot camp from scratch. As long as you took it in 2021, you'll be all right. Okay. You do not need to read any of the 10 books that are part of the resources, but I would recommend that you read the Agile Practice Guide. That one's really worth it. And the PMBOK chapters 1 through 3 and the vocabulary. The rest of them, we take the information and we distill it down for you to only the information you need. So a couple things. We're almost ready to do our Percipio demo here. So we're almost there for the Percipio demo. there's one more thing I want to share with you, which is all of these links. These are links that you can get in the PDF of this slide deck, and that's in the student folder. Okay, so there's your student folder. And if for those of you who are looking at purchasing your student key directly from Skillsoft, I know we're exploring that option because for some of you, either maybe your employer doesn't pay for it or it's taking longer than you would like. So that is something we're looking at, that if you wanted to purchase it as an individual, if there's a way you can do that. So we should have an answer on that pretty soon. And so before we move over to Percipio, one thing I'd like to ask you is, could you please do our survey? We're not done yet. We're going to keep going with Percipio, and I'll show you the list of books and everything. We'll go into the questions. But since we've officially covered all the slides, I would love to hear your feedback on the boot camp. I know this is a short one, just scheduled for about an hour and a half only. But if you can tell us, is this what you were looking for? What else do you need? So if there's more that you want, a deeper dive of some sort, another boot camp that's dedicated maybe only to work experience or something, let us know that. This link I'm going to chat includes what else do you want to know? You know, what other boot camps do you want? And we definitely read that. So if you could share, we'd really appreciate it. The slide deck for this session is in the SharePoint folder, and I've been sharing that. Let me see if I can chat it again. Ooh, I think I lost my share. Let me try one more time. This should work. This is the SharePoint folder. Okay. Thank you for confirming. That's where this slide deck sits. So a couple things. I saw, what books do we read? You don't need to read all of these books. This is the reference list that PMI has published for the PMP exam. This will not, I would not say that this is the best route to success. Think about the PMP exam as climbing a really big, like Mount Everest, okay? And there are probably a lot of routes that you could take. One of them might be reading 5,000 pages worth of learning, but instead, if you're working with an authorized training partner, an ATP, we're like your guide, and we're going to show you the most efficient way to make it along the path that's going to minimize pitfalls, wasted time. Is going to be more efficient and hopefully a much better experience for you. So that is this is the reference list. Oh, okay. The Agile requirements slide. Let's see. Right here, Scrum, Kanban, leadership styles. Yes, if your exam time is showing a different time from Pearson VUE because of a time zone issue, I recommend that you go directly to Pearson VUE, who's proctoring the exam for you, to make sure that you've got the dates straight. That's not something that I could or Skillsoft could clarify for you. I don't want to mislead you at all. Okay. Oh, great question. Do I think that if you started today, could you take the exam next month? Would that be enough time? Um, you have 30 days is tight. There's a lot of content. I have heard of it being done. If I were to give you the ideal window to take the exam, I would say 60 days is great. That's a really good window. And that if you're able to give yourself that amount of time, you can be comfortable and get in the test prep and practice everything. That's the best thing to do. Um, yeah, let's take a look at, if you're interested in directly signing up with Percipio, you can. I saw that in the chat. here. I'm going to bring Percipio over and we'll look at this together. So if you don't currently have a Percipio account, you can definitely work directly with Skillsoft to do that. It's not something that I would assist with or that our mentors would assist with. It would be directly to Skillsoft and using the right here, you can say help and just communicate directly with Skillsoft customer service that way. For those of you who already have the learning platform, I want to show you how this works. So let's go back to the library, which is at the top of everybody's Percipio platform. And I'll show you how I navigated to where we are right now. So we're going to go library and then Skillsoft boot camps. From there, we'll go to project management boot camps. Every project management boot camp cohort is going to be separate by the date you took the course. So you can see for those of you who are saying, I took it in March, you're here. This is going to be the project management professional certification that was before April. So you would just click here and follow all of the instructions that fall in your category of the class you took. We're just wrapping up. How many of you are in the current cohort with me and Carl? And our session 8 will be on Monday. Oh, welcome. Okay, great. How many of you are going to join our cohort that begins next week with Priscilla? And you're going to be in the UK cohort that starts. So wonderful. That is going to be on probably a much better time zone than some of you are used to if you took our classes in April, May. Yeah, the UK cohort will be at 9 a.m. UK time. If you did March, you're going to be right here because your cadence and the flow of your studies would be different. You would want to follow exactly that path. Then we'll have another cohort coming up in June, and that one is a little bit back to the Eastern time, 11 a.m. So there are options all over for depending on where you are and your time zone. We have lots of options for you. Is there a PMI office in the UK for an in-person exam? You can go to the Pearson VUE website. I think that they're global, and so I would assume that there is. I know I had a friend in Japan who had a Pearson VUE testing center there. So I think that's where you would look rather than PMI. You'd look at Pearson VUE. Okay. If Let's see, do we need to sign up for the boot camp? It's a great idea to register for the boot camp, yes. And if you do that, let's see if we can just click on the May-June cohort. That's the very next one that's starting. Here it is, and you can see watch. This is the time right here, and the link is all ready to go. If we go back to the prior screen, I'll show you the cohort that we have going on right now with the April, May. In this group, those of you who are about to start with live session 8, that's the last session in the boot camp. That means you should be spending a lot of time here in the practice tab. If you were curious about the test prep, for those of you who I've seen asking questions about the test prep, you can take your practice exams in here. So how do we register? If you hit watch, let me double check with all of you. Can we try that out together? If you click on watch, does it bring you to a registration tab? I think that it should, but let me know. So if I click watch, and here we are in the live session. Looks like it did for some of you and doesn't for others. That may depend on whether you're already registered. If you're already registered, then it may know that. If you're not registered, then go ahead and register for the cohort that you want to be part of. it's not a good idea to register for a cohort that's already completing. And here's why. PMI is very particular about your live classroom attendance. They are pretty strict about it. So if you can attend a cohort, but you know you're going to miss a day, that's fine. You can watch a session on replay, and PMI isn't going to be too picky about it. But out of the 8, if you're going to miss more than, say, 2, you may need to talk with our mentoring team and make a different plan. So keep that in mind. Okay, great. Some of you registered through the bootcamp calendar. The bootcamp calendar can be found within any one of these. Just click anywhere. And when you do, if you go all the way to the bottom, the bootcamp calendar is right here. So that will give you the links too. If we click on the bootcamp calendar, you'll see what's coming up. Here we are today, and here's Priscilla's session that you can see that this is 4 a.m. Eastern time, but because it's UK, and you're going to be able to watch that at, I think it's 9 a.m. UK time. And then if we go a step further into June, we have a boot camp queued up for, let's see, there it is, the 7th. That would be session 1 of a new cohort. All right. Okay, so you registered and gave your email every time you started a live session. Perfect. Yes, we definitely still have our session 8 to go. We do. We have one more class remaining. It's on Monday. And so we're going to be here back on the 24th. For those of you who have already been part of the cohort that's been going, our last session will be on Monday, and we'll be back to curriculum on Monday. So do you need the 35 hours of education if you have your CAP-M, your Certified Associate in Project Management? You do not have to take it. If you go back to slide 1 of our slide decks from today, you'll see that the CAP-M is actually a satisfier right here, CAP-M certification. However, I don't think that that's going to prepare you for the types of questions you'll get on the exam. So I would still recommend a boot camp to just for exam success. I would make sure that you get that content. All right, let's see. The tile for the cohort is missing. Tell me more about that. Which tile are we missing? Because when we go to Percipio, we should be seeing all of the cohorts in here. Let's see what these boot camp sessions and the PMP ATP ones. Okay, so the boot camp session that we're doing right now is a supplemental session. It's a bonus session all about applying for the PMP and also sitting and having success on exam day. So that's what this session is. It is not part of one of these official training cohorts that counts for the 35 hours. Do you get a certificate of completion? What you do is you just go here to your activity tab in Percipio. And when you go to the activity tab, you can see all of what you've participated in. And so if you happen to get audited, you would be able to pull your activity to show the classes that you took. All right. If you took any session in 2021, you don't have to take an ATP boot camp as well. You just would be in a different tile, which is this one, the Project Management Professional Certification PMP Bootcamp 2021 aligned. Anybody who's starting their journey now can't take this boot camp anymore. Okay, so if it's missing from your platform, it could be the reason. If you took it in 2020, that would be on the old exam. That would be the old content, and I would recommend that you sign up for one of our upcoming cohorts. Okay. Yes, you do have to pay for the test first before you can schedule it. That is correct. Yeah, if you have any one-on-one kinds of questions or situations like your attendance, I would recommend that you contact our help. Or the other thing you can do, if it's related to your own application, something very specific to you, inside the cohort tab, right here, ask a mentor. That is a great option. If you have any questions, you can use that ask a mentor tab and you'll you'll get a lot of assistance that way. Um, let's see. I'm going to start answering questions from the Q&A, and that is because the chat is moving really quickly and I'm not able to scroll up to the chat. It keeps bringing me back down to the bottom in the latest chat. So if you can put questions in the Q&A, I will answer them from there, starting with the recording. So this is being recorded and it will be available within 24 to 48 hours. It'll sit right in here along with all of the replays. So you'll see the replay right there, or it'll also be in the SharePoint folder. And that's what I've been chatting in, that SharePoint folder. So now let me be clear about replay. This is a bonus session. You can watch this on replay. PMI will not let you watch all of your exam prep on replay. These are only here. Bootcamp, ATP bootcamp sessions are only here for review purposes. They do not count as attendance, and PMI won't let you just watch all of it on replay. You do have to attend live. Okay. Let's see. I'm looking only at the Q&A now for questions. The SharePoint site, I think we accomplished that. That was working, that you're able to get into SharePoint. PMI does not require that you attach proof of your education. They will take your word for it. So when you're going through the application process here and you put in professional education, there is not an attach button, but if you're audited, then you're going to have to provide that information to PMI. Okay. All right. Let's see. I'm just looking at why can't you use a work laptop per Proctor? I think we answered that one. It's you can run the software from Pearson VUE to see if it doesn't block anything. But if your employer laptop blocks Pearson VUE because of security, that's the reason why. Okay, and let's see. Good. All right. So some of you have an exam coming up very soon. And if you are looking for the exam simulator, you just need to be inside the boot camp in Percipio in order to access that under the practice tab. So it is inside Percipio. If you're looking for the test prep, this is where it will be, practice. That will bring you to that test prep. If you don't have access to it or you're having difficulty, my recommendation is to call support under the help, under this tab, help, to see if you can either purchase access or if it's a setting. Okay. The June 7th boot camp begins at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So that's going to be in the boot camp calendar right here. If we go to the bootcamp calendar, you'll see that start time for June 7th. Let's go ahead and check it out. Let's see, June 2021. Here it is. This says, wait a minute, 1 p.m. That doesn't sound right to me right now. That could be based on trainer availability. So that might be a trainer preference. I'm not training the June cohort, so if it's who I think it is, you're going to be very, very happy. It's a really great trainer. Very excited about that. So the student key. The student key is purchased either through your human resources department or learning department, or we're looking and exploring ways right now where you can possibly, hopefully, purchase those as individuals if you want to. Everything I'm looking at right here is in Eastern time. This defaults to Eastern. So for instance, those of us who've been involved in the cohort, the April-May cohort, you'll see that that is showing up as 11 a.m. start time. That's Eastern. So my calendar, the one I'm looking at, and now maybe we can change the view. No, that's just weeks and days. So that's a great question, what the default is. I don't know how it looks for all of you. Are you seeing the same times, or is it adjusting for you on the boot camp calendar? Just curious. What does the time zone show? It defaults to Eastern. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yeah. So you may have to just adjust for your time zone. Okay. If you've missed a lot of sessions, more than 2, then you can go to the next round of boot camp. Yes, you can just go to the next cohort and start watching those. Okay. I've talked about student keys, so we're good there. If you participated in the boot camp in January and also in April, May, which one do you put on your application? It doesn't matter. Whenever you finish the first 35 hours that you finished, you can indicate, as long as it, yeah, I was going to say as long as it was this year, but actually PMI doesn't care. If your boot camp was completed a few years ago, they'll let you take the exam. I would just make sure you study on this content. Okay. Let's see. Are there required education hours after being approved to test? So if you've already passed your application process, then whatever you would have had to already put the hours in for your formal experience or formal classroom professional education. So if you did that and your application was approved, then you don't have to take more training, but I would recommend it if you haven't taken training on the current exam. Will there be another boot camp after June? We do expect to continue to run boot camps on a regular basis, that we always have. Okay, PMI does not give us a passing percentage. If you score at least 80% or better on our test prep in your learning platform, that's a good indicator that you're ready to take the exam, but but PMI doesn't publish that data. Okay, so some of you are still saying that you can get into SharePoint, but you're not seeing the slide deck for today. So I'm going to go to SharePoint too, and we're going to look at this together. So if we are here, this is where the link should be bringing you in SharePoint. The slide decks, we have some slide decks here, and that should be probably sessions 1 through 8, depending on what cohort you are a part of. So let's look at the current cohort, and we can see sessions 1 through 8 are there. If we go back to the main folder, you can see audio, video transcripts. That's where all of the replays sit. So depending on your cohort, again, you'll find the replays of each session right there. And because we haven't had session 8 yet in our cohort, that's why there isn't a folder there yet. Let's go to additional PMP content for our here we are. Now we have our formulas, glossary, agile considerations, and then what else do we have? PMI information 2021 and application and exam tips. This is the slide deck for today. The application and exam tips is in the PMI information folder. And there's your exam content outline, the PMP handbook, information about the student key. I think this answers almost every question that I'm seeing right now in the Q&A. I'm going to double check that, but let's just double check. That should answer almost all of those related questions. Okay, can we use proposal coordination as a project? You're coordinating a proposal. I'm assuming that means that you're going to answer a request for proposal as an organization. If you're going for a contract and trying for that contract, that could be a project for sure. You're having to coordinate information. There are stakeholders that could potentially count. If you don't have access to Percipio and you have questions, let me get you the mentoring. Let's go to the syllabus. Let's open that. In this syllabus, it's a little bit small. Let's expand the size a bit. Okay, right here at the bottom, you're going to see Skillsoft mentoring, Skillsoft_mentoring at skillsoft.com. So if you're needing your certificate of completion, if you have questions about your work experience, you may be able to get some assistance there. Okay. I'm just looking at all of the different questions here. If you have exam day questions, you may need to go to Pearson VUE for that. So if you have any questions about proctoring or scheduling or any of that, that's Pearson VUE. And I'm just checking all the Q&A to make sure we've covered everything. No pass rate information. It's a mystery. Okay. All right, everybody. I'm just looking at it. I think we've got most of this covered, but what I'd like to do is a couple things. I'm going to leave you with information that you can use after today if you have any questions at all. So first, let's get you the Skillsoft mentoring email. And this is for those of you who are already candidates and you might have a question about work experience or how to access if you took this class before April, how do you get back in, that kind of thing. So it's Skillsoft mentoring at skillsoft.com. That was Skillsoft_mentoring at skillsoft.com. If you want to copy that from the chat. The other question you may have is related to other support. So if we go, oops, I meant to change that back to Percipio. Let's look at Percipio. Okay. What if your question is related to something technical? And then it would be this, the help tab. So if I click on help, it's going to open up all of the, the knowledge base. Our knowledge base isn't that specific to PMP. So instead it would be the call us. And I'll chat this in for you, Percipio help. Okay. There you go. And then depending on your region, you're going to have there will be various phone numbers available to you depending on where you're located. So that gives you the resources you might need after today for help. But for now, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this session. I am really looking forward to seeing you in an upcoming boot camp, whether you attend with us in the let's see, we've got the Tuesday session starting for some of you. We have the June 7th session starting for some of you. If you're not sure if you are going to join a session, but you want to, you can contact either the Percipio support or our mentoring team, and we'll be happy to help you. So thank you so much, everybody. Great to see you. For those of you who are in the current cohort, I look forward to seeing you on Monday. For those of you who are joining another cohort, I think you're going to have a really great time. It is so important to have this kind of information going into the exam, and it's just going to be great exam prep for you. And I wish you all the best. Those of you who have an exam day coming up, good luck to you. Please keep us posted and let us know how you do. Thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or evening and have a great weekend too. Thank you.